20 years ago, something incredible happened in the Pokemon TCG that has never happened again since. The Japanese player base absolutely destroyed the rest of the world, and they did it with a deck that nobody else saw coming. So let's take a look at the time a Japanese secret deck dominated the rest of the world. This was the first Worlds officially hosted by Pokemon, and it was set in sunny Orlando. The format was Exhibition through to Secret Legends. This was a unique format because you got the last of the E-Reader sets all the way through to the start of the EX cards. These were cards that gave up 2 prizes on KO, but were normally much more stronger as a result, with beefed up HP and attacks. This strange format led to a very unique metagame in the lead up to the 2004 World Championship. Let's take a look at the big hitters in the metagame so we can put ourselves in the shoes of players who were looking to attend Orlando. Gardevoir was one of the strongest decks at the time, surprise surprise. It made use of 2 different Gardevoir cards. The first one and the main attacker was Gardevoir EX. Feedback was a heavy hitting attack, dealing 10 damage for each card in your opponent's hand. Considering most of the format relied on Steven's advice, which provided a ton of draw power since you would draw 1 card for each Pokemon your opponent had in play, this meant that it was ramping up really quickly. In keeping up with the massive damage trend, Psystorm would often one-hit KO whatever it needed to. This it would deal 10 damage for each energy in play, attached to both yours and your opponent's Pokemon. All wrapped up with a beefy 150 HP too, very nice. But how are we powering up that 4 energy cost though? Well, that's where the other Gardevoir would come into play. Since it had the Pokepower Psy Shadow, which would let you attach a psychic energy from your deck to one of your Pokemon, and then you put 2 damage counters on it. Sounds a little bit familiar to Gardevoir EX, eh? This would provide a ton of energy acceleration, all coming from the same evolution line. And just in case you couldn't get enough Gardevoir out, Boost Energy would help you out by providing 3 colorless energy for 1 turn on a single energy attachment. And bear in mind you had the old rare candy rule, so you could get this going in a single turn. This format also had an insane amount of draw power that Gardevoir liked to use, and that was from the Magneton Delcatty engine. Magneton would let you discard 1 card from your hand to get 2 basic energy from your discard pile. That's very nice, letting you recycle energy, sure, never a bad thing, but it became insane when you would use it in combination with Delcatty, who would let you discard a basic energy from your hand to draw 3 cards. This little 1-2 combo was played pretty much by the whole entire format, as it provided a ton of extra consistency, especially when paired with Oracle, which would let you put any 2 cards you like to the top of your deck. Meaning the combination of Oracle, Magneton and Delcatty meant you could grab any 2 cards you liked in a turn. Madness. If you was a bit more of an aggressive deck player though, you could look at Gorbis. Gorbis had the Mystic Water attack that would deal 20 plus 10 for each psychic energy in play, both yours and your opponent. So in the mirror match, or against Gardevoir deck funnily enough, this was adding up crazy fast. But when you consider multi-rainbow energy and multi-energy would exist, this would catch a lot of decks off guard, ramping up really quickly. Traditionally, Gorbis was paired with Crobat. Crobat and Golbat both provided you with cheap early game attacks, which you would use until you built up your army of Gorbis. However, you could pair Gorbis with Mewtwo EX if you liked for a slightly more aggressive version. This would swap out the Crobat for a Mewtwo EX that would turbo out energy very fast via energy absorption. And then you could either temper out opponents with Psyburn from Mewtwo, or you could play Warp Point to get your Gorbis in the active and start swinging at a much earlier rate. If you wanted to spread damage, you had Exploud at hand, a very cool card that had 4 attacks, all of which were pretty usable. The main build around was Breaking Sound, which would deal 10 damage to all your opponent's Pokemon. And bear in mind this was a very heavy evolution based format, so if your opponent was slow out the gates, this could put a lot of pressure on those evolving basic. Desert Ruins would help out by chipping out EX Pokemon too. Base Control would offer a more directed bench snipe attack, dealing 30 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. However, the main trick up Exploud's sleeve was Ancient TM Rock. This would give the Pokemon it was attached to access to the attack Stone Generator for a single turn. Stone Generator would de-evolve all your opponent's Pokemon, meaning if the basic Pokemon underneath the evolved Pokemon now had more damage than HP, it would get KO'd. This meant multi-prize turns happen very often for Exploud players. You would even spam Mr. Briney's Compassion to completely heal yourself, meaning you would spread, and stone generator for game a lot of the time. Swampert was a metagame titan, again with 2 different Swampert cards being played. Swampert EX was the main attacker, since Hydro Pump would add up at a silly fast rate, letting you be aggressive in the early. And then as you would transition to the mid to late game, Crushing Wave gave you access to a bench snipe of 40, while also 50% of the time making your opponent discard an energy attached to that Pokemon you just dealt damage to. This was a very unique attack that gave Swampert a new dimension. The water type Swampert would let you attack for a different weakness, and this weakness would slap the best deck in format at the time, more on that later. But it would also let you attach an extra water energy per turn to your active via its water cool Poke power. This is how you would scale up Swampert EX very fast to use Hydro Pump or Crushing Wave. Swampert wasn't done there though, because you could really double down on how versatile Water Cool was, because you could play other attackers like Blossom. Not only would Blossom provide grass typing for you to hit with, so now you could hit for 3 different types at the same time in this deck, but Heal Dance would also let you heal damage from your Pokemon too. A handy little bonus. However, as good as all those other decks were, Blaziken was regarded as the best deck in format by far. Following in the same vein as Gardevoir and Swampert, you had 2 different Blaziken you could make use of in this deck. But this time, I would say the one prize Blaziken was the most impactful. It had the Poke Power Fire Starter, which would allow you to attach a fire energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. Now, we have seen just how strong these kind of abilities are in the near past, with cards like Electric, Malamar, and Flaffy. And all the way back in 2004, even though it was on a stage 2, it was every bit as strong. The attack Fire Stream was also just as good, for 3 energy dealing 50 damage to the active and then a 10 damage snipe everywhere else. Incredibly strong, sort of letting you have a little bit halfway house of an Exploud deck. This meant Blaziken was fully capable of taking prizes as well as attaching energy. If you did want to take prize cards fast though, Blaziken EX was one of the best at it. Blaze Kick was capable of dealing 30 damage for 2 energy and burning at the same time too. Very efficient and usable, even if you didn't have the fire starter Blaziken out. But Volcanic Ash was the star of the show, dealing a colossal 100 damage snipe to any one of your opponent's Pokemon on board. This was game ending and could be used to pick up KOs no matter where your target was. Since Firestarter was also very flexible, you could play a myriad of different attackers, like Blossom, but we already know about that one. So how about Team Aqua's Manectric, who would not only provide Dark and Lightning typing in one card, but also due to its Power Spark Poke power, you could Flare Starter to it, and then you could fling the energy straight to the active, making streaming Volcanic Ash much easier. But you could also run the majestic Rayquaza EX, whose Dragon Burst attack had the potential to one-hit anything in the metagame, since Dragon Burst would deal 40 damage for each fire energy you discarded. Nuts. This meant Blaziken could hit for 5 different weaknesses at the same time, and had the consistency engine to keep it moving smoothly. That made Blaziken regarded as the best deck in format at the time, and it did extremely well in the 2004 metagame. So, I'm going to ask you again, if you was going to attend the 2004 World Championships, what would you have played? We've just run through your main options. Sure, if you want to push the boat out a little bit, you could play something like Machamp or Quad Muck EX, but realistically, you couldn't expect to do well. The Japanese player base was met with these same questions. However, they was deep in the kitchen, cooking up something to wreck the whole format. And trust me, they did it really well. They built something that had unparalleled speed, power, and surprise factor too. No one knew what was going on. That deck was Magma. The centerpiece was this behemoth, Team Magma's Groudon, a basic Pokemon with 100 HP that hit for fighting and darkness typing at the same time. Linear attack provided a strong turn 1 play via Magma Energy, dealing 20 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. Not bad. This would also help bring high HP Pokemon down into range by damaging a Torchic or a Mudkip, for example. So when they evolved up, they were now in range of your Pulverize, which would deal 70 damage if the defending Pokemon had any damage counters on it already, which thanks to linear attack and Desert Ruins was a very easy stipulation to fulfill. Special Darkness Energy would also boost that damage even more, by 10 for each one attached. This made Magma Groudon a basic Pokemon that had no problems one-shotting everything in the metagame. And you could power it up in a single turn, with a little help from its friends. Team Magma Camerupt would attach a basic energy from the discard pile to itself, and if you did, you put 2 damage counters on it. This was a fantastic way of getting extra energy into play, and also gave you a fire type attacker, which is very useful at countering the grass types in the format like Blossom. That would counter any Groudon. That extra energy acceleration though could easily be moved from Camerupt to any other of your Pokemon via Magma Claydol, whose Magma Switch power would let you move 1 energy from Magma Pokemon to any one of your other Pokemon. This meant if you benched a Groudon, attached a Magma energy to it, then use Camerupt to get another energy in play, you could then use Claydol to move that energy onto the Groudon so it could swing with Pulverize in a single turn. This made the Magma deck extremely hard to pull ahead of, because even when it looked like they were on the ropes, they could swing back with a massive KO out of nowhere. Claydol also provided Psychic typing and Dark typing too on the same card, meaning it could get stuck in with attacking. And Dark Hand would add up fast, meaning it could realistically help keep Gardevoir EXs at bay, all while being a 1 prize attacker too. Team Magma Zangoose would help out by filling the bench spots, turning off Groudon's pesky Pokemon body, but Core Family would also help set up your Numels and Voltoys too, with Team Play being perfectly usable, dealing 10 damage for each Magma Pokemon in play. So that's it, the Japanese players were set on using the Magma Pokemon core. However, they now run into a huge problem. They had no room to use Delcatty and Magneton. The Japanese player base now had to get creative to make sure this incredible attacking core was still consistent. Magma Conspirator would be the main supporter in the deck, allowing you to get any combination of 2 basic Magma Pokemon or basic energy cards. Very nice, useful for ticking over. However, one of my favourite cards in the deck was Maxi. This will come in the clutch, adding a whole new explosive angle to the deck, allowing you to pluck any Team Magma Pokemon from the discard pile and put it straight into play, allowing you to get around normal evolution rules, like getting a stage 1 or even a stage 2 if possible, into play in a single turn, like Camerupt or Claydol. And Team Magma Ball would allow you to search for any Team Magma Pokemon 50% of the time, and the other 50% you could just grab a basic, still very useful. And lastly, Magma Energy would provide 2 energy to the Pokemon it was attached to for a single turn. With cards like Steven's Advice, TV Reporter, Underground Expedition and Copycat rounding out the supporters, the Japanese players now had a crazy strong deck on their hands. But I don't think even they could have imagined just how strong it was really going to be, since not only did they take it and compete at the 2004 World Championships, they fully dominated it, with a Japanese Magma player winning all 3 age divisions with the deck, something that hasn't been done ever again since, including having 3 in top 4 of Masters and 2 in the top 4 of Seniors. The world was well and truly dominated by Magma that year, and I don't think we'll ever see such domination like that at Pokemon's highest of stages ever again. Real quick, I have to give a shout out to this video sponsor, Dragon Shield. They make the best accessories in the game, and if you want to get your hands on some and save yourself some money, click the link down there and use my code BURST to get 5% off, and it helps me out too. Let's get back to the video.